Good morning. I am Dr. Kristine David, and I am the Assistant Director of Assessment for the Indiana Department of Education. I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the Indiana academic standards and the way the state of Indiana assesses the knowledge and skills Indiana students have in relation to these standards. In 2014, Indiana adopted the Indiana Academic Standards for both English Language Arts and Mathematics, and in 2016, the Science and Computer Science standards were adopted. These standards are more rigorous than the previous standards, asking students to engage more deeply within the content. As the standards changed, the way we assess these standards needed to change as well. Due to federal legislation, states are required to assess the breadth and the depth of these standards. By breadth, we refer to ensuring Indiana students are assessed on all standards that are deemed appropriate to assess on a statewide assessment. By depth, we refer to the rigor or cognitive complexity required of students, as identified by the standard itself. Let's look at a few examples of depth in ELA and mathematics. The nonfiction standard 6.RN.2.1 states, cite textual evidence to support analysis of what a text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. You can see that there are several components to this standard. Asking students to cite inferences from the text is much different than asking students to cite evidence that is explicitly stated, and requires a more cognitive complex process to perform that task. It is important to understand depth because the items on the state assessment assess students at those levels. For 6.RN.2.1, an example of a question could be, select the phrases from the text that show why people believe the city of El Dorado did not exist. This could be a hot text item where students are asked to select the sentences in the text that are not explicitly stated, increasing the cognitive complexity that would be required to answer the question. Likewise, the math standard 6.GM.4 states, find the area of complex shapes composed of polygons by composing or decomposing into simple shapes, applying this technique to solve real-world and other mathematical problems. Finding the area of a complex shape would require less rigor or cognitive complexity than asking a student to apply the technique to a real-world situation. Here is another example in math that would require more depth in understanding the question. The student is given a real-world scenario and is asked to create a solution. In this question, the student is not just asked to compute the area of a right trapezoid, but to produce an image using a line tool, a more cognitively complex task. When instructing students on these standards, it is important to provide opportunities for students to engage in these more complex processes, to fully explore the standard to the depth to which they are written. This will allow for deeper understanding for the students and will mirror the expectation of the state assessment. Thank you for listening to this presentation. As always, if you have additional questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Office of Student Assessment at the Indiana Department of Education.